Are you the fanatic we're looking for? Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, part of the Draft Professor Podcast Network. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of seconds. We are live. This is the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. We've got Randall and Bill with us with a special guest, Cole. Hey, Cole, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing very well. So, Randall, fresh off of a wedding rehearsal.
Oh, yeah. Hardly want to talk about it. It's the first wedding that I'm going to have that's a full service. It's like a 2-hour wedding, so I was good to get out of there.
Bill, how are you doing today?
I can say that I am significantly better than Randall at that point. I mean, 2 hours.
Rude.
I could talk ball. I could talk ball for that long, but I don't know if I could sit through a wedding for that long at that point.
You preach to the choir, man.
So I would like to give a shout out to Randy Moss, who just had cancer surgery. So we need to acknowledge any player that has a play named after them, like Randy, wish you well. And then I also found out right before the podcast started, today's Taylor Swift's birthday, and I didn't get her anything.
She won't be sad.
It's okay, Jim. Neither did I.
Yeah, I think I'll get over it. So we're going to cover some corners today. We're going to cover some wide receivers. And this is the second to last wide receiver and corner episode. So at this point, we've covered close to 30 corners, 30 wide receivers, and we've got them all up and down the draft board. But the first player we're going to go with is Aydan White from NC State. So, Bill, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, absolutely. So Aydan White, NC State, 6 foot, right around 190, 189. This guy, very excellent coverage skills. I mean, he's got exceptional awareness, good positioning, a really high football IQ. He's constantly making the right decisions, especially in zone coverage. He hardly ever gets beat in that aspect. He's got a really strong tackling technique. He has the willingness of a crash test dummy. He is going to throw his body into the wind with little care for himself or others. Despite that, he's very durable. And having played in more than 40 games in his college career now at this point, with very few injuries to show, some nicks and bruises, obviously, but nothing long-term. He's also a very versatile guy. He can play in both man and zone coverage schemes. He can play in press as well. He is a little undersized, not terribly so like some other corners that we've talked about on these episodes, like a Kobe Bryant type of undersized. But obviously, whenever you see a sub 200 cornerback, it does give cause for concern. His speed is also average. He's not going to blow the doors off at a combine, and he's going to struggle to keep up with the Bonds and the Worthies of the world. In addition to that, he also does have limited experience in the slot, so you'd think a guy of his size probably would do very well in playing in the slot. For me, Aydan White, right around that day 3 range of corners, right around the top half where you see teams start to take chances on, ever-loving traits that we see, especially in coverage skills. If I had to comp him, it's probably like a Bradley Roby type of guy when he was with Denver and the Saints. That same style of willing to just throw it around, mix it up, but he's not going to be the fastest corner on planet Earth. Randall, what'd you see from Aydan State?
Yeah, a lot of that, to be honest, the zone coverage was probably my favorite. You are right. He only played 10 snaps in the slot, and I was very confused about that because it seemed like he could have, especially mirroring and things along those lines. He played wide receiver in high school, so I think that's where he's very good at the zone IQ. He's really good at playing the flat and the sail route on the sideline really well. He'll play like right in the middle of those two, and you're right, with that decision making, he makes that good decision to go whether cover the flat or cover that sail route. During the Miami game, he had that really nice interception in the red zone that was in the end zone where it was exactly that. Somebody played a flat, somebody went to the corner pylon. He stayed right in between them, decided to back up, took that interception, took that touchdown away from him, and got that interception. He's got a motor on him. He's a workhorse. He's done 2,500 snaps in college, and he's a sound tackler as well. This year he's got 49 tackles with only 7 missed. very impressive. He goes sideline to sideline. There's a play back last year in 2023 where he was playing soft man, and the ball, he was on the sideline, ball went to the middle of the field. It got tipped, and he was the first person to get close to that ball. That's kind of how quick he can be on a reactionary basis, and that's one of my favorite things that I like to see. I am concerned that he didn't really play much in the slot and that he's a little bit of a thin frame. You're right. With that thin frame, he just kind of throws his body at you to tackle instead of kind of getting sound. But I do believe that he can learn to be a sound tackler in itself. I am curious if he would be interested in playing safety. Does anybody see a safety possibility for Aydan White at 6 foot? If maybe he gains 7 pounds and puts him at 195, 197, if that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I had him right around where you had him too, Bill.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I think I would want to see him near 200 if I'm going to ask him to play safety, especially if he's going to be a box type of safety.
So, Cole, what do you have on Aydan White?
Just oily hips. His footwork is insane. Just his feet and his hips work so well together. He has really noticeably good hand-eye coordination when it comes to when he's up in press, getting a hand on the receiver and just bailing back out. Another thing that you notice, and even in that picture right there, he has long arms. I think from a couple of sources, just a shade under 32-inch arms for Aydan White, which is very long for corners. I do think in his back pedal, his pad level can rise a little bit, which luckily for him right now, his footwork is very good, so it makes up for that higher pad level in his back pedal, which maybe that's just a coaching thing from him. And obviously the noticeably he's short on his long speed. It's not, he's like Bill said, he's not going to blow anybody away. He might be a 4.5. Maybe he kind of has that Tahveon Arnold type poor 40 time with that 4.6. I think he ran. But
yep,
pretty much agree with everything that you guys said. I have him around top 100. Physical guy. He honestly does remind me a little bit of Tahveon Arnold in that, not an elite athlete, but his hips are fluid and he has that stickiness in coverage. Physical at the tackle point, and sometimes he doesn't always capitalize on those tackles, but he's going to get in your face and he's going to try and make sure that he is the one tackling you. And when he tackles you, it hits hard and it hurts.
So, Cole, you said that he's close to your top 100?
Yes.
Randall, where did you have him?
I had him at the end around 4, so we're looking at 125, 140.
And then Bill, sounds like you were the lowest of the three on him.
Yeah, I'd probably be somewhere in the 150 range. I'd probably start to middle of round 5.
Okay. So, Bill, you want to do Dez Malone from Oklahoma?
Absolutely. Dez Malone from Oklahoma. We're talking 6 foot, right around 203. The big thing you notice, obviously, when we talk 6 foot, 203, but he's got size and length. You see it in that photo there. He's got some pretty decently long arms. His athleticism is a significant asset. He does have top end speed, so he can close gaps quickly. I do love his explosiveness and reaction time, especially off the ball. He does have decent cover skills, especially man-to-man and zone. It's not the greatest thing in the world. He is a willing tackler. He's willing to get physical and mix it up. The big things that I'd want to see him improve on, though, is his technique, both tackling and in coverage. It's just inconsistent. There's games where he just flat out disappears for me. In addition to that, his footwork, it seems like some back pedals, it's almost like he's tripping over himself. And his hand placement, a lot of the placements that I've seen, he's going to get flagged for at the next level, and it's going to be a problem. In addition to that, there are occasional lapses that I've seen where he gets caught peeking in the backfield trying to make a big play, which is a concern for me. All in all, though, this is a guy that with the athletic traits, the physicality, and the good foundation, I would feel comfortable drafting him. But it would be near the end of the draft, round 6, round 7. If I had to compare him, it'd probably be a little bit of an old school comparison, but like a Chris McAllister when he was playing for the Baltimore Ravens, that type of physical type of corner. Didn't do a lot of things great, but did enough good to make the roster. The concern is obviously at 6 foot 203, do you try to ask him to play the boundary or play the slot? I I don't know if I would feel comfortable him playing the slot with the current skill set he has, but he could probably do it. He's probably going to be more of a boundary guy. But Randall, what did you see from Dez's tape?
I would probably put him in the slot as well. Did anybody see any injury history on Dez Malone? Because I read a little bit that he was battling potentially a shoulder, because he did have his snaps basically cut in half from 700 to 371. Saw a couple Reddits that he was in and out of an injury. And I'm not 100% sure if that was true or if he was just taken off the field on drives as well. But I mean, last year he had 700 snaps. This year he has 371. It's cut. We're dealing with, 29 to 30 snaps in some games. And he had kind of low on it. I do believe that he does stay 100% engaged. He's pretty fluid. He's a good tackler, and he will be aggressive on it. He recognizes the run quick and attacks the line of scrimmage. So that's kind of where I'd like to see him in the slot as well, because he can quickly put that foot in the ground and attack the line of scrimmage to help with the run game. He's not the greatest of coverage. He does peak. It is true. Not a lockdown corner. He has a higher reception rate. He only has one missed tackle. He's versatile. His 40 will tell a lot. You said he does have that elite long speed, but I'm curious to see what his 40 is and his 10-yard split is. With his low snap count, it was kind of hard to gauge him. I had him in the early round 7 sort of thing as a draftable as well. But I wish he almost had another year to kind of get higher in there, because he has the potential, but he doesn't. So it's hard to put where he would go, where he would fit, because of his low snap count this year and where he could be. But I do have him as draftable right now. Cole, how about you?
This is a guy that I was only able to get around 2 games on, but like Randall and Bill both did say, likes to peak in the run game, and it's a blessing and a curse with that, because you're going to make a big play in the run game, or you're going to get smoked on play action, which just can't happen at the next level. He has inconsistent hands and footwork in his back pedal. He does trip over his own feet, but I do think that he's a good enough athlete to make up for some of these problems at least the college level. I personally don't have a true grade on him yet, but just based off what I have seen so far, I'd say around that priority free agent to back end of round 7, Mr. Irrelevant, kind of like where Jalen Key had a grade for me last year out of Alabama. Just a guy that you might be able to draft and can come into a rookie camp and might be able to make some noise, and you can bring him on to training camp. But I'm not 100% sure yet if he is technically sound enough and athletic enough to make up for some of those technicality issues.
Yeah. So, Cole, I want to give you a shout out for calling a possible Mr. Irrelevant. Like, we do podcasts like this every day, and nobody's called that shot yet. So that's a good take. I'm just saying, that's a good take right there.
Yeah, if that happens, I got to start doing the lottery.
Right, you go do the lottery, and then at that point, we'll just snip this, clip it, and you just play it on TikTok for the rest of your life.
Get on ESPN.
So, Cole, do you want to kick off Donte Kent from Central Michigan?
He's a guy that I think could be a solid slot corner, like rotational guy. He's smaller, 5'11", 190. I have him a shade under 5'11", kind of closer to that 5'10 and a half, 5'10 and 3/4 range. Another guy that I just got onto my board and not officially graded, but got a game or 2 in with him. I actually like his hand placement, and his footwork can be smooth at times. I don't necessarily think he has that stickiness in coverage to be like, this is a guy that I'm comfortable drafting within the first 5 to 6.5 rounds. So again, another guy that I'm not 100% familiar with yet, but a guy that, again, kind of like Dez Malone, UDF or PFA, round 7 type of guy.
Okay. Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, so Donte Kent's a very fun one. Like Cole hit on, this is a guy that he's got some good traits, but he doesn't have a whole lot that's going to light the world on fire. He does get his head around very quickly, especially in those coverage situations where he needs to turn and find the ball quickly, and he tracks it very well for forcing turnovers. But my nickname for him is Kenny Rogers, because this guy's a gambler. He often looks in the backfield way too often, worse so than Dez Malone. He's more focused on trying to strip the ball than make an actual tackle, ends up with too many yards after the catch situations. He also doesn't really have a physical element to his game, and his frame is already maxed out. I mean, in the picture you see there's not a whole lot of room to add mass, and at 194, he's just not the biggest guy in the world. I'm with Cole on this one. I have him as a late 6th round grade. In terms of tape wise and play style, I would compare him to like a Tre'Davious White that can't really tackle, to kind of break it down that way. But I don't think there's a whole lot here for Donte Kent, which is such a shame because I love smaller schools like Central Michigan and them turning guys out and bringing them to the draft. But Randall, what'd you see on Donte's tape?
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off peaking and things along those lines is, you're looking at the 2023 Notre Dame game where the very first snap was to him, and he didn't really even there was no pump fake, no double move, nothing. He just kind of stayed. He was looking at the quarterback, ran through, and it was a 65-yard touchdown real fast sort of thing. He did bounce back off it, but he consistently, it's like, I know the Notre Dame game was a gauntlet for him and things like that, but he always made a couple big mistakes. He'd bounce back off it, but then he'd make that other mistake sort of thing. So it was tough to watch, and I wanted to watch that game to see where he was at his best. I mean, he's not a great tackler, but they use him in the box a lot, to be honest with you. He has 24 pass rushing attempts with 3 pressures. So they are using him at trying to use that physicality out of him. He has 91 tackles with 28 defensive stops. So on a statistical game standpoint, he looks bigger on the field and he can get him down, but he does need some work on that for sure. I think he's a slot corner for sure in a situationally, and use him in that pass rush as well. I have him in the round 7 as a draftable and I wouldn't be surprised if he does go the UDFA route for a practice squad to learn. But yeah, I mean, his flaws are pretty obvious, and it would take at least another year or 2 in the NFL to at least get up to NFL speed.
Okay. Another Oklahoma corner. So Cole, you want to kick off Woodi Washington from Oklahoma?
Yeah, I'm definitely cool with that. He's a guy that really, when I was watching Billy Bowman way early in the draft cycle, around September when I was hitting safeties, he definitely flashed. And again, we're kind of in this theme of, especially in this draft, with these shorter 5'11", 5'10", 5'9"-ish even range corners who are a little bit lighter. And I do think that Woodi Washington is built rather bulky, especially in that picture. You can kind of see he does have a lot of mass. But what my problem with him is he doesn't necessarily play the cleanest amount of football. I don't have the stats with me, but correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if he has the best ball production either, which is a big thing that goes into my grades. I might be wrong there. Another guy that I can see playing in the slot, or kind of that off Manny corner. He's physical, so I can definitely see him playing press a little bit in the league. But a guy that I have a 6th round grade on, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Bill, you want to follow that one up?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Woodi Washington, 5'11", 195. Like Cole mentioned, when you're watching Oklahoma's backfield, you see Woodi Washington, you see the talent flash. There's really good route recognition, and he's got really good click and close ability. Once he determines where the route's going to go, he can close on it really well. My big concerns is his back pedal, especially with his pad level. It rises too often, and too often he's playing higher than he needs to. In addition to that, when he's trying to change direction, it almost looks like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. It's not fluid. It's just clunky. It's rough. It's rigid. It's hard for him to change directions, which is already bad enough as a corner. But when you also don't have the most elite speed in the world, he's fast, but he's not elite. So he's already going to lose a step in that transition. And now you're asking him to cover another step. It becomes a problem. This is a guy, another one, I've got him in that day 3 range, right around round 6. If I had to compare him to a player, it's probably like a Marcus Peters type of guy, a guy that if you ask him to get physical with a wide receiver at the line of scrimmage, he's going to do that. The problem is that his size, 5'11", 195, there's not a lot of receivers in the NFL he's going to be able to out-muscle. So he's going to have to add on some serious poundage to be able to do that. But Randall, what'd you see from Woodi Washington?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much a similar. I actually have a question for you guys. What did you see that made him come off the field and not have many starts this year opposed to last year? Because he, again, another player who cut their snaps in by almost 2/3 from 851 to 333. And it seems like he kind of has a down year when on a statistical level. But I do agree. I mean, his back pedal and hips are pretty clunky, and when you see him get burned, it's a small, speedy guys, and it's not too much work on that outside. So I was kind of worried when I was watching that. He does diagnose well, but he can go up for the ball. He's good at mirroring wide receivers, and if there is a jump ball, he will try to turn that into an interception. He does have an interception against Houston when it came to that, so that was impressive on his part. I am a little nervous that this is his 6th season in college, and he's down snaps. People are speculating there was an injury throughout this year. He was going to enter the draft early. He stayed for Venables. I kind of wish he entered in earlier, and maybe he could have got higher. But my concern would be his age and going into 6 years into the college and then coming into the NFL. I'm not sure how his combine will go or how his interviews are, but I would put him in a late day 3 as well as a draftable, and wouldn't be surprised if he didn't personally.
No, I agree. I think this is a guy that really cost himself by coming back last year because he's torpedoed his stock, and I haven't seen any injury concerns. I've just seen reduced snap counts, and I don't know if that's just him not being able to handle it on the field, or if Venables is trying some sort of rotational backfield with his corners, riding the hot hand type of scenario, because you saw it with Dez Malone too. And I don't know if he just doesn't trust those guys. But yeah, that's going to be a question at the combine, especially on medicals or on just, hey, your snap count cut in half. What was your assessment of what happened? And ultimately, he's going to have to answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, his reception rate is 76%. A lot of yak on it. Allowed 2 touchdowns, 1 interception with no pass breakups. It wasn't a great year for him this year.
Okay, so Bill, you want to kick off Tahveon Nicholson from Illinois?
Yeah, so Tahveon Nicholson, 5'11", 185. This is a guy, very solid anticipation on crossing routes, especially. Very good in the anticipation. Adequate in run support. He can throw his entire upper body weight into a wide receiver and make those types of tackles. I really love his acceleration, lateral quickness, and foot speed. He can keep up with some of the quicker wide receivers. He doesn't have the elite long speed that we look for. Again, not going to blow the doors off at the combine, but he can keep up with some of these guys. He does a very good job of getting his eyes in position, getting his head around, solid ball skills. The big things, obviously, is I would like to see him get a little bit better against double moves. It seems like too often he gets shaken out of his shoes. His shoes are still at the line of scrimmage, and he's 3 yards in on the route. All that being said, though, this is a corner that I do like. I've liked him since his time at Louisville, and I haven't seen anything to change that. I have a round 3 grade on him right now. My comparison for him, it's a little lofty, so brace yourself, but D'Angelo Hall from the Atlanta Falcons, same style of corner, does a lot of things well. There's still some stuff that he needs to clean up technically from a footwork perspective as well. But Randall, what'd you see from Mr. Nicholson?
Yeah, I agree. His time at Louisville and even last year, he played in the slot a little bit more than he did in 2024, and they put him more on the outside in 2024, which still kind of worked, and it was fine. His size can get him in trouble with bigger receivers. You're right, when it comes to his back pedal and his hip fluidity, it's very, very smooth, and he's super quick on it. Like his initial bursts is kind of insane to watch on film, to be honest. It's very impressive to watch, but I do feel like sometimes it does get him in trouble with processing, especially with those double moves and even those under short routes. It seems like if he's playing soft man and he's reading an intermediate or a deep route, he's so quick that sometimes he's already 4 yards back, and then a curl or a dig is almost 3 yards of separation already. He needs to kind of maybe take a break before he takes that back pedal, or maybe process a little better, in my honest opinion, to make sure that he's not too far back and giving those short routes too much leeway and catching and stuff. He will keep it in front of him, though. He's a sound tackler. He's got 56 tackles in the last 2 years with 9 defensive stops, so he's stopping the offense, and it's working out well. He had a wrist injury in 2022, cut his season by 3 games at the end, but he bounced back pretty quickly in 2023, so I don't see that as a yellow flag. I see him as a mid-day 3. I had him at like mid-round 5, end of round 5 sort of thing. I don't know. I think he can bulk up a little bit. I'd like to see him maybe add 5 pounds, and that would help in the NFL as well. And I think he can get that done. So I like him. I think he's a good cornerback, and he will be an NFL cornerback. Cole, how about you?
Just you guys really did hit it with the very, very jumpy. He's like go, 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 go with his feet. That's why he's so good at taking those crossers and those digs and all those types of things, but will give up so much cushion on those curls. And even like I can't remember. There was one game where it was just a simple bubble screen, but or not a bubble screen, excuse me, a smoke, and he was just so far off the ball, and it looked like man coverage, and he was just so far away from where the ball was that he couldn't make the play. He was out of the play because of just how much he wants to follow receivers and how much he just wants to go and track those routes, which it's very good, and why I think he projects very nicely as a nickel or slot guy in the NFL, just because you're going to – a lot of the time in the nickel and slots, you're going to get those sort of out routes, sort of shorter, like across the middle of the field routes. That's just kind of how the game goes, and that's why I think he really does fit there well. Very good tackler, like very, very good, like high solo tackle numbers as a corner, like up in the 20s, I think, for the past 3 years, or around there. I think it was 18, 21, and 23. He's a solid athlete, but he's very quick. His head's always wrapped around to follow the ball. He's very good at manipulating eyes. I like him a lot, if you can't tell. I have a round 4 grade on him, and I don't really necessarily have a good comp for him yet, but I do see his projection because he's just a little bit more underrated than most people know of right now. Yeah. I do see his projection kind of being around that Tariq Still kind of like round 5, like super sleeper, but goes in and goes to the league and ends up having a great rookie season and hopefully a great career.
Cool. So I believe that concludes our corners. So we are at the halfway point of our episode. So we're going to pause for a commercial break. Cole, welcome to the show. This is your first time with us, but it will not be your last because we're going to see you again with Josh on Wednesday. But yes, can you tell everybody watching kind of who you are, how they can find you?
Yeah, so I go by, as you can see kind of towards the bottom, Cole P NFL on Twitter. I do a lot of draft breakdowns for many different prospects. I currently have about 275 guys on my board right now and about 120 graded from varying positions. Only positions I do not grade are kickers and punters because I have no idea how to grade those. But I know Bill is very big on the special teams. I
gotcha.
I really like looking at the film first, but I'm very, very analytical. I like to find trends and find where I can fix mistakes or I can kind of come past the consensus. So that's kind of what you'll find with me. I love talking ball. College, NFL. You'll find me on my Twitter page about 3 posts a day, whether it's a breakdown, a mock draft, an article, just finding something to do to get people talking.
Fantastic. So the way I get that out of my system is I host a podcast every day. So we each get our fix on in a different way. Randall, do you want to tell everybody who you are and how they can find you?
At Randall Slifer on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me. I basically just do everything through there. Big, obviously, also college football. I am analytical as well as watch tape. I like to kind of match them together and see if it kind of watch the tape, look at the stats, see if they match up and why they do or why they don't sort of thing. But yeah, find me on Twitter and I'm always talking.
Cool. Bill.
Yep. So you can find me on X at Sparks Scouting, also at Draft Detectives as well. Also a writer and analyst for CadesDraftRoom.com, which Cole is as well. So you can check us out there. I am very quote unquote old school. I'm a tape watcher. I'll sit in the lab and watch tape all afternoon and all night, 24/7, 365. Right now, currently I have 450 prospects graded on my big board, and I am what I like to call the comp king. Every single prospect on my big board has a comp, except for kickers and punters, because if I comp them all, they'd all just comp to Sebastian Janikowski, and then we'd just be nowhere. So, but yeah, that's where you can find us. Jim, where can the people find you?
So the Twitter page for the Draft Professor is at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. Please subscribe to the Draft Professor on YouTube. Please like this video on YouTube. This channel has content every day. Right? We're covering different positions. Right now, we're going through a scouting report series. This is the second to last one for the wide receivers and corners. And then we're going to transition to other draft content. I know Bill is leading up the Senior Bowl. Randall is leading up the college football playoff preview. So we've got plenty of people. We have close to 21 people that are building draft content, and they're going to come at you Monday through Friday every day. So please, like, this draft is going to be covered like no draft has ever been covered before. We have a lot of really good people, and we have a show every day. And some days are going to have 2 shows, and I think Thursdays is stacking up to have 3. So if you like the draft, this is the channel for you. With that being said, we are now flipping it to wide receiver Roderick Daniels from SMU. So, Bill, you want to kick this one off?
Absolutely. So Roderick Daniels, SMU, 5'9", 182. I'll preface it with this. He's listed at 182, but man, it is a slight 182. I think it's probably closer to 172 at this point, but we'll get into that when I talk about his negatives. The positives, he's quick, he's fast, he's got the juice when it comes to speed. He can blow by defenders with his burst. His route tree is really well developed for a smaller guy. Most smaller guys with speed, you think that all they know is vertical, just run fast and go, but he's actually got some really crisp, sharp routes, especially in the intermediate game. His hands, he's not really known for spectacular catches. He's not going to, win on jump balls at 5'9", but he's pretty sure-handed. But now we get to the flip side of the coin at 5'9", 170 to 180 pounds. He's light. It's going to cause concern, especially in the blocking and sustaining blocks in the run game. It's going to cause concerns of durability, and can he even run over the middle without fear of one hit taking him out for a couple of games? The other thing that I've noticed with watching his tape here recently is there's consistency issues. I'll see a game where he just completely blows up and makes everybody look foolish, and then another game where he just completely disappears. And it's a big boom or bust type of guy for me with him. The other thing is a guy of this size should also be able to produce on special teams in some fashion, whether it's kick returns or punt returns. I haven't really seen that too much out of Roderick Daniels, but it's something that definitely could be worked on at the next level. All in all, though, the frame is a big negative for me. It's to a point where I don't have a draftable grade on Roderick Daniels. He's like a priority free agent. If I had to comp him, it's like an Isaiah McKenzie type of guy for the Indianapolis Colts, kind of a gadget guy, screens, bubbles, kick returns, punt returns. He's not going to be an every down receiver for you. And even in that frame, it's still a concern if I'm even going to put him in the slot. Randall, what do you have on Mr. Roderick Daniels?
Yeah, coming out of high school, it's like kind of perfect. You almost put that with his weight, because coming out of high school, he's at 160. And I saw a listing at 185, and looking at it, I was like, well, that's like gaining 25 pounds in college. That's A, impressive, and B, he looks slimmer than that. So I think you are right along that. Track star in high school. They do use him in the slot. Majority, you're right. His average depth of target is under 8, 7.8, and he's honestly targeted the most behind the line of scrimmage. But he is a yak monster. It is impressive when he gets those balls. He has accounted for 28 first downs this year, and most of his first downs are behind the line of scrimmage. He gains 10 yards after the catch per reception, which is nuts, and that's consistent. In 2023, it was 9. In 2022, it was 10 again. So he's a yak monster. He's pretty elusive. He's got 14 forced missed tackles this year, 12 in 2023, 11 in 2022. You could tell that when he gains those enforced missed tackles and yak, he uses every inch of that sideline trying to gain inches on those yards sort of thing. So I did like that out of him. For me, his route running was okay. And I don't know if it's scheme based and stuff like that. Like he can run his crossers, being 5'9", he'll run his crossers and stuff like that. But sometimes he seems casual with it and running through it. And I think that could be a part of SMU and the way they run, because he does do a lot of clearing out in the intermediate routes for Brashard Smith to open him up in the passing game as well. So sometimes he looks kind of lackadaisical in that route running. And also sometimes in his curl routes, he does a little hitch that dips his shoulders and is very predictive with the DB. And I didn't like that. He did a couple without it, and it worked. And then he consistently started doing it with the shoulder dip. And then a DB noticed, cut him off, and he was not available. So I think the big thing for the NFL is he does have to work on his route running, and kind of consistently have it, because he shows really good like whip routes. The touchdown in the ACC championship at the end of the fourth quarter was really good, where he came out and then came to the sideline to tie the game at that point. So he has it in him, but you are right. The inconsistency is where I'm a little bit worried about him, other than his frame. Cole, what did you see? Isaiah McKenzie was a great one, by the way.
Yeah, size. It's just an obvious, and in a size speed league that the NFL is now, it's very hard to project a 5'9". I actually have him closer to 170 than 182. I have him at around 174 with pretty solid confidence that is going to be very close to whatever he weighs in at the combine or any all-star game he decides to go to. His hands are relatively consistent in a possession type manner. He's going to make those, you give him a yard or two to have enough room to make those catches without much contested sort of space from the corner, and he's going to make those catches for you on a pretty consistent basis. Very shifty. Yeah, yak monster. And you see the shiftiness in his routes, like Randall said with the whip routes. His hips are very smooth, and I think that contributes to the small size, but he's also a good athlete. So those three things paired together work out very well for him. I actually do have a comp. I have two comps for him. One is Devin Tompkins for the Carolina Panthers, and another one is Kevontae Turpin. Sort of what I think he should be used as is a kick returner and a guy that should be coming in as a fifth or sixth guy who really should not be playing a whole bunch of snaps, but maybe you give him 3 to 5 snaps a game on the offense to run some sort of orbit package or some sort of bubble or smoke where you can get him kind of moving out in space and not really have him running those routes where you're going to be worried about him getting jammed or getting kind of smacked and shoved in a locker, if you really will, against press or even off man. He can run into those guys and just get completely taken out of the game, especially on his clear outs, which does cause some spacing issues for the SMU offense. But I have a UDFA grade on him, and I think he should be signed to be a kick returner / wide receiver 6 type of guy for a team.
Randall, what grade did you have on him?
I had a late day 3 as well.
Okay.
And then, I mean, that was good on Cole, because like even like the Boston College touchdown that he had, it was basically like he was on the outside, quarterback was running to the left, just toss it to him and let him make his own play, and that's kind of what he's good at in the NFL. Would be.
And I know we've talked about it at length, and everybody pokes fun at it, but Roderick Daniels, this is a Miami Dolphins guy. This is a track meet at wide receiver that you're just gonna throw out there. Like Cole said, you're not gonna throw him out there very often. But this is a guy, like I look at the Duke game, for example, had an 81-yard touchdown reception. This is a guy that you throw out there, have him make a quick catch and try to take it the distance, and if not, you pull him back off the field because he's not going to be able to sustain long snaps at a time.
So we were lulling you to sleep at the beginning of the podcast, but we are going to pick it up because we've got some pretty good wide receivers coming your way, starting with Roc Taylor. So Cole, you want to kick off Roc Taylor from Memphis?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally really, really, really do like Roc Taylor, like a good amount. You look at the size. I do have him a hair under 6'3" at like 6'2" and like 6'8", something around those lines. Good weight profile. He's strong, very, very strong. A guy that we'll get to a little bit later, in a very different aspect with his size. Roc Taylor uses a lot of his physicality on his routes. He's very, especially against press, he's going to get corners' hands off of him in jams. He's going to make sure that a lot of his space is him making sure that he is bigger and stronger than you are. He has shown, it's inconsistent at times, but he has shown good ability to run sharp, precise routes at his size, which is very impressive. Again, inconsistent, but you're going to see those flashes on film from him. He has a good amount of accolades in his trophy closet, which is something that I do appreciate when looking at draft prospects, especially wide receivers and corners. It's, if you're producing in your conference and you're winning those awards, you have a good chance to go to the NFL and make a name for yourself, carve something out. I have questions about the touchdown production for a bigger guy. You'd like to see a little bit more from him in the red zone, sort of in those like 30, like those that money area in the field where it's harder to score, but you have a bigger receiver where it should make things a little easier and open them up. He does show some lackadaisical effort at times. When he knows the ball is not going towards him, he can kind of lollygag in his routes a little bit, which does show up. And then top end speed, but for a bigger guy, I'm not going to complain about his speed being a 4.5 instead of a 4.3. It's just not who I am. I have a day 3 grade on him. I don't really have a good comp for him, but just because I'm a Panthers fan, I'm a little tapped in with them. It's kind of, he reminds me of Jonathan Mingo, but if he didn't make his catches way harder than they needed to be.
Yeah.
Bill.
We love it.
I'm sure Bill will have a different comp, but go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, no, Cole hit the nail on the head with a lot of this. Roc Taylor, he's a big physical guy, 6'3", 215. He's a guy, he has what I like to call a zip code catch radius. If it's in his area, he's going to come down with it. He's not the most elite technician when you look at route running, but 6'3" guys most often aren't. The big question marks that I have, obviously creating separation at the NFL level, Cole hit the nail on the head with that. Again, the lackadaisical effort, it's a red flag for me. There's clear spots on tape where he's half speeding it in his routes because he knows the ball's not coming his way. And if we can see it as analysts, then NFL GMs are going to see it, and it's going to be problematic. I do have a question on his consistency. Cole, he talked about it with his touchdown production, but there's games where he either just disappears or he struggles with drops in terms of concentration drops and just simple lapses that diminish his impact. Overall, though, this is a guy that I would take a day 3 flyer on right around round 6. Type of guy, big body, X receiver that I could bring in. He's not going to start for me. He's probably going to start on the practice squad while he develops some of these concentration drops and develops more consistency. My comp for him is Keenan Allen. In that same big body X mold, can be a deep threat if you give him the routes to do it. But I think ultimately it's going to be a big conversation piece at the combine, at the postseason bowl games, about some of that consistency and some of those half speed routes. But Randall, what did you see from Roc's tape?
Yeah, to kind of piece it all together sort of thing. I'm curious. He chose Memphis. I believe it was the coaching. I was trying to find an interview for why he did, but he had offers at Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Ole Miss. I ended up choosing Memphis sort of thing. Memphis kind of used him differently in all of his years. In 2022 and 2023, they used him in the short game a lot. And then in 2024, they opened it up into the out wide and the deep game. 2024, basically a third of his passes came from an average depth of target of 31 yards. So we're talking it like expanded into those deep shots for him. So it did help him in that benefit, I believe, in 2024. That's kind of where he should be in the NFL. I do believe I do agree with Cole with, I'm not going to really talk about that speed much, but I do believe where you see his speed is in that second gear. The initial explosion is decent, but then once he gets that second gear, like against I believe it was last year he was playing when he had his 85-yard touchdown in 2023. You could see that speed on it when he basically just did a quick 7-yard out route, caught the ball, broke a tackle, and then beat 3 defenders just running down the sideline sort of thing. It was impressive to watch on that second gear. So that's where I kind of see his speed at being beneficial. I am concerned about the touchdowns, especially because it looks like it seems as though when he tests out, he does have long arms. So I'm surprised they're not doing them on corner fades or anything along the red zone and stuff like that, just trying to get him up and get those contested catches because he can do it. I mean, out of 49 contested catch opportunities in his career, he came down with 29 of them. That's impressive. The concentration drops are there. Competition's rough. Last year, he did have good games against Mizzou, Boise State, SMU, and Iowa State. I have him as a mid-round 5 guy as well. I had him in technical terms, Gabe Davis, but he doesn't clap the catch or anything along those lines. But I kind of saw a little bit of a Gabe Davis out of him.
Yeah, so that means if he's drafted, he'll get 4 touchdowns in 1 playoff game, and then you won't see anything for him for the other 3.5 years.
Don't pay him $13 million a year. After that game, don't pay him $13 million a year.
Yep. And to piggyback on what you said, Randall, I did some digging too of why he went to Memphis. The only thing that I was able to find is that he was originally committed to Tennessee, but they pulled his offer 24 hours before the National Signing Day. So I don't know why his offer was pulled. I do know that it was pulled. I reached out to some Rocky Top sources that I've got going that far back, and they weren't able to dig anything up. But he did originally commit to Tennessee, but when they pulled his offer, Memphis they swooped in, and he even quoted it in an article he did that he said he'd never even heard of Memphis and their football program until he committed there. So.
Okay. So I'd like to introduce Beaux Collins, and if anybody from Beaux Collins family, I know that you are following the page, so thank you very much. So if any of you are watching, we will do our best to be objective. But Bill, do you want to kick off Beaux Collins from Notre Dame?
Absolutely. Beaux Collins from Notre Dame, 6'3", 202. As a guy who lives in Indiana, just 2 hours south of South Bend, I enjoyed watching Beaux Collins this season live and in living color. This is a prototypical X wide receiver in this NFL draft cycle. This guy has very good length, very good catch radius. He also is a vertical threat. He can take the top off of a defense. He can win some jump balls with you. He also has flexibility to play in the slot. And I know you think 6'3", he's a big guy in the X, but you can put him in the slot and he would still work just as well. In addition, this is a high character kid with academic accolades. To get into Notre Dame, you got to be smart. You got to be really book smart. And Beaux Collins has that in spades. Obviously, we flipped the coin. There are some concentration drops and some body catches on his tape that I really would love to see him clean up at the next level. It happens way too often to admit. He also does struggle to sustain blocks in the run game in some cases. Some cases it just looks outmatched. There is medical concerns, of course, especially with his shoulder injuries and foot injuries that have piled up over the years. But what's really crazy is his physical tools that I've all just hit on. The production doesn't match. Do you think a guy that produces this well has these physical tools should produce better than what he is? All in all, this is a guy that I think is a definite wide receiver 2 at the next level. He's a Robin to someone's Batman. I have him right around the end parts of day 2, late round 3, early round 4 grade. My comp for him is Dwayne Bowe, a guy that's very solid. He can be your wide receiver 1 in a pinch, but he's definitely someone's Robin to someone's Batman. Obviously, being a Cleveland Brown fan, I wouldn't mind seeing Beaux Collins make his way to Berea. I would be happy with that. But Randall, what'd you see from Beaux Collins out of Notre Dame?
Well, before we go to Randall, I have a question about the Dwayne Bowe comp. So wasn't Dwayne Bowe wide receiver 1 on the Kansas City Chiefs team that didn't have a wide receiver score a touchdown all season?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead, Rand.
Hence the reason he wasn't really a wide receiver 1, because they never really scored a touchdown. Yeah. He was a wide receiver 1.9.
Got it. Yeah.
There you go.
We're good. I just had to make sure that I got the comp right.
Yep.
But yeah, I saw a lot of that for sure. He is that prototypical X, and I do agree with you that he can play in the slot. He has some good releases on the line as well, which I really enjoy. He's got a nice, like obviously, being Bills fan, a Stephon Diggs, like a good fade, like a delayed fade on it, and then he'll run his route to the stem sort of thing. And it is working in the college for the cornerback, and I do enjoy that. He also can trick DBs into that and turn it into a screen. And his screen game is very impressive, to be honest. For 6'3", 202, when he gets those screen passes, he's very patient with it, and he'll take his time to get those. I would assume I couldn't find a stat on it, but on those screens, I bet his yards over expected are way through the roof because it looks like there's not a lane, and then he finds a lane and gets open. I do agree that he is a good 50-50 baller, but just like Roc Taylor, 2 touchdowns with those capabilities and those long arms is a little concerning for me. I would like to see that. I enjoy his blocking game. His blocking typically does come from being in the slot as a wide receiver, but he can open up that lane. So if it's an outside run, he is reliable to let that for that running back to gain yards. The injuries were a yellow flag awaiting the offseason for me, to be honest with you. They could be a bigger flag. I had him as a early. More of like a early in the mid-day 3, so we're looking at end of 4 sort of thing for me, based on those injuries, because he tore his plantar fascia in 2022, in 2023, and 2022 had separated shoulders, grams, hammies, and stuff like that. So that was concerning for me, and that's why I put him at the end of round 4, round 5 sort of thing. Cole, how about you?
Early on, like October, actually might have been a little earlier, like late September, I had watched the Texas A&M game of Beaux Collins, and it was the only game I had access to and was able to watch at the time in all 22. And I was just left blown away. He was like a top 50 player, like borderline first round grade. And then I started doing some more research, and he was a little bit of an older prospect. He's a senior. Not sure if he's a redshirt, but he is a senior. He's a 4-year player for sure. Had medical concerns. And I was like, oh, this kind of stinks. But these good things that you see on tape never, ever leave. Strong routes, especially vertically. He's going to sell you on those fade balls. He's going to sell you on those post routes. You give him outside leverage on routes that aren't favorable to outside leverage, and he's still going to make it work and win and still route the other corner up. He's played elite competition, played at Clemson, played at Notre Dame. You're going to play those NFL corners. Like Bill said, super high character on all accounts of everybody I have spoken to about Beaux Collins. Super high character, great leader, smart, which shows up in tape. He is very good at finding holes in zones. Awesome vertical threat, good size. I do the production thing again, does scare me a little bit, which is why his grade has dropped for me. I still really like Beaux Collins a lot. I have a comp to relatively close to Indianapolis, but 2021 Cincinnati legend Alec Pierce, who's now on the Colts. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit shorter, but one of those vertical threat guys who does sometimes have concentration drop issues, but is going to stretch that field, has a nice vertical release package against press, inside-outside leverage. I have around that early day 4, like where Jatavion Sanders, Justin Aboigbe, Troy Franklin all went last year, like the first, I think, 15 picks of round 4 is kind of where I would take him if I was a GM. So that early day 3, I could even see him like back end of round 3 on like the comp picks, him going as early as there. But I really like Beaux Collins.
Yeah, and there's a couple other really good fits that I would love to see Beaux land in. Cole hit the nail on the head with the Alec Pierce comp, and I love that. I would love to see Beaux either in Philly as a wide receiver 2/3 or down in Tampa Bay with Godwin and Evans, just really tall wide receivers. I think he needs to get in somewhere where he can somewhat take a redshirt year, still play some snaps here and there, especially in the slot, but somewhere where he's not expected to produce right away while he gets some of these things worked out. Especially he needs to be in a strength and conditioning program to try to hammer out some of these nicks and dings that he's seen from, shoulder, foot, hamstring, the plantar fasciitis issues. But all in all, this is a really good wide receiver that I want to see more from. I'm excited to see him.
Plantar fasciitis. Is that an injury that lingers for a career, or is that something that once you heal it, it goes away?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, by all accounts, I've heard it never really goes away. You can fully, 85 to 90% it, but it'll never fully go away. It'll still always be there. I think when you couple that with the other injuries that he's had, that's where it starts to be an issue. If you have someone with just that fasciitis problem, then you're fine. But when you have a fasciitis with a hamstring, with a shoulder, it just seems like he's getting his body's failing him faster than it should.
Okay.
So, Cole, do you want to do Jared Brown from South Carolina?
Yep, absolutely. 5'11", 195. That's pretty much my verifieds on him. So a little bit of a smaller guy, but he has that almost Luther Burden-y Deebo Samuel, but about 10 pounds lighter, but that like shorter but stockier wide receiver. He does need to fill out a little bit more, which is going to happen in the NFL when he goes into one of their strength and conditioning programs. He was a Coastal Carolina transfer, and he had about 750 yards and 5 touchdowns there, I think in his 2023 season. Low production this year, which really did stink to see, but that South Carolina receiver room was just disgusting, so it's understandable. I think he has reliable hands, and he's an obvious yak threat. That's just a South Carolina thing. They are what the Indianapolis Colts are for the NFL draft and RAS demons. They are athletic traits all over the board on offense and defense. That's just what South Carolina is, and that's why Jared Brown was on their team. He has long arms, so he actually has a really good catch radius for being 5'11", which helps him out a lot. Like I said, low production in 2024 with 250 yards and only 1 touchdown, which again is a little bit scary, especially because I think he is a senior. He, for being somebody that is good after the catch and being smaller, he lives in contested catch situations a little too much for my liking. And that ultimately does drop his grade a good bit for me, where I actually only have a priority free agent grade on him. I don't really have a comp for him, but he's a guy that I could see coming into a rookie mini camp. Whoever a team brings in for their quarterback, just slinging it around, could make some noise, could go into mini camp for a team and eventually training camp and be a nice camp body. So yeah, that's really about what I have on Jared.
So, Bill, what do you have?
So I am higher on Jared than probably most people. This is a guy, he is a violent, angry runner. Like, he will probably make Kyle Brandt's angry runners list several times in his rookie season. He's a force in catch and run situations. He can pick up chunks of yardage once he's broken that first tackle. Doesn't have top breakaway speed. He's not going to outrun people, but he can get away and get some yards after the catch. The big thing though is even though he's a yards after the catch guy, he's not a monster in the fact that he doesn't seem comfortable in catching, turning, and running. It seems very disjointed between the three. It seems like he has to almost think about it rather than reactionary based. Cole hit the nail on the head. This is a guy that loves to live in contested catch situations, doesn't create a lot of separation, is just comfortable in traffic. But all that being said, this is a guy I'm a little higher on. I have a round 3 grade on him, and my comp for him is a little lofty. It's a wide receiver that has over 8,500 yards in his career, and it's an AFC East throwback, Lavernius Coles from the New York Jets. Same style of guy, very gritty. He's not going to blow the doors off in terms of speed, but he's going to be that yak monster, that chain mover that an NFL team needs. Randall, what'd you see on Jared Brown?
Yeah, I feel like his production for South Carolina this year was in part of how South Carolina used him. I mean, in Coastal Carolina, they used him about, 90% in the slot. And then South Carolina put him out wide a lot more for this year. And it kind of shows his average depth of target in South Carolina is over 13 yards, while in Coastal Carolina it was at 5.5 in 2023. That is a huge jump in average depth of target, especially in route running and everything along those lines. So I believe his production was low this year, A, because of South Carolina, and B, because they just kind of almost changed his whole entire scheme and how he had to do it. I did see him in a couple games where he did kind of get disappeared. Sometimes he disappears in games and stuff like that. Sometimes he does take snaps off. He doesn't play the whole game and things along those lines. But he does come back. I do think he can run routes where he does draw attention to, like in the Kentucky game. He took a quarter and a half off, came back on a fast vertical route that dragged his safety with him, and it opened up that sail route that ended up him gaining about 50 yards on that. So he can get attention on those routes, but also you're right, he is not that great separator where he just goes for 50-50 balls. I do think that 2024 is a little bit of an anomaly in the statistical standpoint due to them switching out. So I did have an early day 3, pretty much a mid-round 4 kind of grade on him, and I was a little bit higher than a priority free agent.
So I have a question, and I am about to compare Isaiah Bond replacing Xavier Worthy, and then it sounds like Brown transferred in and he replaced Leggett. Is that an accurate summary of that? Like because Leggett went to South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Was he the one that replaced Leggett at South Carolina? Is that like a fair?
In terms of the top wide receiver pass catcher for South Carolina, I'd agree with that. But in terms of style of receiver, they're two fundamentally different guys. Leggett's that big body X style.
I definitely realize they're different body types.
Yeah.
Loud and clear. But so here's where I was going with that. So did anything else change in South Carolina's offense from last year to this year? Like they have the same quarterback. They have the same quarterback, right?
Lenoris Sellers took a major step forward this season, and that's the big difference, I think. And we'll get to it when we talk #quarterbacks week, but he's a guy to keep an eye on for the 27, even maybe 26 cycle, depending on his draft eligibility. But I think he took a step forward, and that's a major component of why Brown was successful this year too.
Yeah, so I was building up, but I had to collect a little bit of data before I did my build up. So Leggett had essentially 1 year of production last year as a highly athletic wide receiver at South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to Cole, right, kind of do the introduction, it sounds like he's an athletic wide receiver. Would we say he's as athletic as Leggett, but Leggett had better production? Or would you say Jared Brown's athletic ability is a notch below? Like, how would you compare the athletic ability of Leggett to Brown?
Ooh,
I'd personally say I like Jared Brown's first year more than I like Xavier Leggett's. But if we're talking pure vertical threat and pure who's going to be less wonky, transitioning from catch to run, I'm taking Leggett. And that I'm a Panthers fan, like I've mentioned. So I'm very tapped in with especially the Panthers draft picks from previous years, and Leggett being the first round pick this year. I made sure to watch multiple, I think I watched close to 8 games of Leggett in last year's draft. And while Leggett's he's not going to wow you with his first step or his release packages off the line with his athleticism, and Jared Brown does do that better. I think when you look at the full picture, Leggett is probably a tier above Brown athletically.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Cole hit the nail on the head with that one. This is a guy, if you're in the short game and you're in those bubble screens, smoke screens, stuff like that, Jared Brown's your guy. You know, Cole even talked about it kind of a Luther Burden-esque type of guy. But if you're talking the total package, short, intermediate, deep, the verticals, the go balls, the jump balls, Leggett's going to be your guy on that aspect.
Okay, so Bill, for our next wide receiver, we have a big guy, Quan Felton from Virginia Tech. You want to kick this one off?
Absolutely, Jim. So Quan Felton, 6'5", 216. You hit the nail on the head there. Big body guy. But not only is he a big body guy, he's got a very good release package at the line of scrimmage. It's very difficult for corners to play press coverage with him. He seems to be able to get through them very easily. He has what I like to call, and you've heard me say it several times, zip code catch radius. This guy will throw anything this way and has very good body control for a guy of 6'5". What's really weird, though, is despite that height, he's a short stride guy. When you watch him run in yards after catch situations, his stride is significantly shorter than that of receivers of his same height. He also does have issues with his top end burst. He doesn't have a fifth gear. He seems to redline it at that fourth gear, doesn't really get up to that next level. In addition to that, he has some awareness issues. I've seen a lot of balls where he's tried to chest catch it, and I've seen some concentration drops. He also he can find soft spots in zone coverage, but there's times where he is just drifting out there aimlessly. The Syracuse and Miami games, there was a lot of spots in zone coverage where he just drifted so far out and took himself out of the game. The size is great. The hands are good, but from a route running perspective as well, there's still a lot to work on. Right now, for me, he's a priority free agent, but I do believe he's got a Senior Bowl invite. I think he's going to be able to make him some serious cash there and get into the day 3. For a comp perspective, this would be a Brandon Marshall-esque wide receiver, that same big body X receiver. He's got some really good hands, does have some concentration issues, obviously, but his route tree does need some development in terms of just being crisp. Randall, what did you see from Quan Felton?
Yeah, from what I saw is when he got out of high school, he was 6'3", 200. So he had a growth spurt in college, went 6'5", 216, which was good. I do enjoy. He was at Norfolk State. He was a 0-star prospect. It became a 3-star transfer, which was great. Had 12 offers. Chose Virginia Tech, so he's working hard at Norfolk State. So I do appreciate that. Obviously, his production was much better last year with 650 yards and 8 touchdowns. This year, posting 335 and 2. He is quick-footed, and when you mentioned that those strides, he is short strides. It kind of does work. It's more of a negative in those short strides than long strides. But if we were to take anything that's good about it, is he can decelerate pretty well for a 6'5" guy. So if he's running a short route, a curl, a dig, or something like that, he can decelerate pretty well to get separation on those short routes. Catch radius, just like you said, that's great. He does have drops. He has 19 drops in his collegiate career. 4 this year, 6 last year. Contested catches for 6'5". He had 21 opportunities and came down with 4. Last year he came down with 0. So I wish that he would use his body and his height more towards his ability. And I'd like to see that more. You're right. If that Senior Bowl with one-on-ones and such like that, that'll be interesting to see and how people respond to it. I have him as a late day 3 draftable because of his size, but wouldn't be surprised. Cole, how about you?
This is a guy one of 2 guys I was very excited for tonight, especially after when I saw the list last night and looked him up. 6'5". I know that size isn't necessarily a great historical translation to the NFL, but then I turn on the film this morning, and I posted a thread earlier, probably 7:30 in the morning. I was amazed. You're 6'5" and pretty damn close to 220 pounds, and you're not letting receivers get in your chest and just be stronger than them. You're using release packages that you see slot guys and shiftier guys use to beat those types of looks from corners. He does have inconsistent catching problems, but when he does make those catches, he does do a good job in those contested areas, which actually I think he does separate very well. 2 clips specifically I'm thinking of, both from I'm blinking right now, but it was an out route and he got off man. And for a bigger receiver, I tend to find off man is a very difficult thing for them to match because the receivers have cushion and they're normally shiftier compared to these bigger guys, and they're able to just change direction and follow those bigger receivers. But He had a deep out, probably like 10 to 12 yards. He didn't get the ball, but then my biggest thing with him, he turned up the field and just started blocking. He blocks his ass off every single play. If he doesn't get the ball, he's blocking. If it's a run play, he's blocking, and he's going to try to finish you. He has an offensive line mentality in a wide receiver's body. It's almost like he's a super thin tight end, which he's not Johnny Wilson. He shouldn't move to tight end in the league, but he has a smash mouth football mentality from an ex receiver, which I love to see personally. He has poor bursts and short strides, but I almost wonder if that has something to do with his timidness when he's running in yak scenarios. He sort of is indecisive. I think he has good hips and like body movements, but he runs in short strides. Like not like he's afraid to get hit, but like he doesn't know where to go because he's a bigger guy. So you would think he lives in contested catch areas, so he's going to make the catch and get tackled immediately. So I almost wonder that's like his mindset. But personally, I have a very high grade on him. I'm sort of in that back end of round 3 type, top 80 to like 100 area. I don't have him solidified in my wide receiver rankings yet, but he's going to be in that area for the foreseeable future and potentially higher after the Senior Bowl. I have sort of a mixed comp here, and they're 2 Saints players. If you put Marquez Callaway in A.T. Perry's body, I feel like that's sort of what you're getting with Quan Felton.
I love it. Okay, so Bill, I'm going to put you on the spot, and we're going to do a very simple, this is what our Senior Bowl preview show is going to look like. So if you've got a relatively low grade on Quan Felton, Bill, what does he need to do specifically at the Senior Bowl to get him like into the 5th round range of your board?
For him to get him in that 5th round range, the big thing I need to see is one-on-ones in terms of route running. I want to see crisper routes, which is going to be hard for a guy of his size, but I want to see crisper routes, and I don't want to see any drops. Yes, that's hard to say from a wide receiver standpoint. There's going to be drops, but what I don't want to see is a pass that should easily be caught, that's on the numbers, and he just drops it. In addition to that, I want to see him in zone coverage. I want to see how he's able to sit down in a zone. If I see those types of things, he's definitely going to make himself some money in the Senior Bowl.
Okay. And then I'm going to go, everybody's going to get a turn here. So I'm going to say, Cole, who's higher, Ty Felton or Quan Felton?
Ooh. That you're really putting me on the spot here. I love Ty Felton. I'm gonna say Ty Felton, just because I feel more comfortable about how he will translate. Because he's not. I just get so scared with these bigger guys. Just recent history, like you have a few that have worked out, but you have a lot that didn't. So it definitely does scare me. And then the production factor added into that again scares me. And with Ty Felton, you know what you're getting. You're gonna get a vertical field stretcher. Can take the ball out of the house on slants. Not necessarily a DJ Moore level athlete, but he brings a DJ Moore level dimension to a game, which I do find more valuable than A.T. Perry and Marquez Colson.
And then Randall, Ty Felton, Quan Felton, who's higher?
Ty Felton for sure. We've been watching Ty Felton for a while now, and I think Ty Felton's top 10 wide receiver in this draft for sure.
Okay, and Bill, I think the answer is obvious if you have an undrafted grade right now on Quan Felton. But if you wanted to add a comment, feel free.
Yeah, no, it's Ty Felton by a country mile. Ty Felton's actually my wide receiver 5 on my big board, slotted right behind the guy we're about to talk in the next slide, which is Jim. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so before we go to the last slide with Restrepo, the reason that I'm asking is I believe what we're going to see as we go through the draft cycle is Ty Felton is going to be a polarizing player. There's going to be a high variance of the grade, as best I can tell, as I talk to other people about him. Not everybody's as high on Ty Felton as this podcast is. So that was the reason why I was going there. But Yeah, so Xavier Restrepo from Miami. Bill, I know this is a guy that you've been telling me about for a long time, so I'm going to let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I'll try to contain my excitement for Xavier Restrepo because man, I'm high on this kid. 5'10", 198, 199. This is a guy, he's got very good hands, very good ball tracking skills down the field. A very intelligent player in zone coverage. Where Felton kind of drifts out of zone coverage, like we talked about, Restrepo just knows right where to go every single time. He's a very reliable pass catcher. He's quick off the line of scrimmage using good acceleration. He's got effort and technique in the run game as well. Yes, he's 5'10", he 198. He's going to have issues with his size in the run game, but he gives the effort. He has really good technique. He's also very creative in the open field with good vision. An option for kick returns is going to bring that plus special team returns to the NFL. But we get to the flip side of the coin. He does lack the ideal size and strength for an outside guy. This is going to be a guy that you're primarily going to put in the slot. You could try him on the boundary. I would not recommend it. I think he needs to be a slot, gadget guy, special teamer, kick return, punt return, whatever have you. He also does struggle to create separation from press coverage. Press coverage is kind of like his kryptonite. If a taller corner, bigger corner gets into his chest, it's going to be a problematic issue. He also does do a lot of body catching, and it's something that's got to be addressed at the next level. All that being said, however, this is a guy, he is wide receiver 4 on my big board right now, right outside of round 1, right, early round 2 grade, but with as few round 1 grades we have in this NFL draft and how shallow it is for that. This is a guy I could see going in round 1. My comp for him is Golden Tate from New York Giant, Detroit Lions, that same style of guy. You could play him on the boundary, but I wouldn't recommend it. A team to watch for Mr. Restrepo, the Denver Broncos. Put him in Sean Payton's offense in the slot and kick returner, punt returner. He's going to do some serious damage in the AFC West. But that's enough about me gushing about Xavier Restrepo. Randall, what'd you have on Restrepo's tape?
Yeah, that spot on the Broncos is saved for Tez, by the way. But I will pound the table until that happens. Anyways, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, super productive, which I love. Back-to-back 1K seasons with 17 touchdowns in the last 2 years, with 11 of them being this year. Finds the end zone, putting up 100-yard games against Syracuse, Duke, Florida this year, 100-yard games against Texas A&M, Boston College, Rutgers, and Rutgers in the Miami bowl game last year. Yak, great at Yak. He improved on Yak. Last year he had a 4.2 yards after the catch per reception. This year it's 7.3. Even though he is 5'10", 198, he has pretty good contact balance, so he can take a hit, stay up, and keep running to help with that Yak. But he also can miss tackles. He's got 12 forced missed tackles this year. I do like his route running. I like his intermediate route running as well as his explosion off the line. So I'm a big fan of that. Uses the side every inch of the sideline, which, as you can see, it's one of my favorite things. If you're trying to get that extra yard, get that extra yard and a half, sort of thing. So that's one of the things that he's really good at as well. For college, his yards per route run is 2.47, which is impressive. He's got 69 catches this year with 53 first downs. Finds the sticks, which is impressive. He's used all over the field as well, but I do agree, NFL, it is in the slot game. You did mention his vision and how it's really good. He is really good at the zone coverage. Sometimes I do feel like he got lost once in a while, just around like spatial awareness. It wasn't really IQ and route recognition or zone recognition. I saw it more along the lines of maybe just losing your vision where you are on the field, especially when I was watching the Virginia Tech game. Had a vertical route where he ran into a teammate where they were possessing the same space, kind of put that on Restrepo there. In that same game, he had a chair route in the red zone where there was somebody playing the flat. Probably should have just stayed on the flat route, but decided to curl up to that corner, and that ended up in an interception in the red zone. Feel like that in IQ should have just stayed in that flat where he had 5 yards of separation, caught the ball, had enough time to run the end zone, sort of thing. So a little bit of awareness, but typically he is really good at that. I do believe he could need to add some strength, which that shall happen in the NFL. being with Cam Ward, I think, is a plus as well, being in college, because Cam Ward is a play is never dead. So he is running around the field with a high motor, trying to find that extra space sort of thing, while Cam Ward is waiting to throw the ball at the last second. I have him right now. So you have him at the wide receiver 4. I have him as my top 64 guy. And as when Cole mentioned the round 4 of last year, kind of the same as in that round 2 of last year sort of thing, where we had that run. And I think he's in like the 2/3 of the way in that run in the second round sort of thing. Maybe that 39 pick, 40 pick sort of thing is where I had him. Cole, how about you?
Love Xavier Restrepo. Everything about him, from statistical profile, I actually really like his size profile. I love those. I'm a sucker for those 5'10" to like 6 foot, 190 like sub 205 receivers. Those are just always been my type of guy. I loved Ladd McConkey last year. I was super high on Jermaine Burton, who I think might have been a little bigger, but sort of that same like Golden Tate mold, like Bill had mentioned. Xavier Restrepo is a tough guy. He'll get smacked by a linebacker, get right back up. He'll find soft spots in zones. He has strong hands. You don't see a lot of drop problems with him. And to pair with those strong hands, he is this is a little hot. I think he is probably the best route runner in the entire 2025 receiver class. He's sharp. He's crisp. I do think he does need to get stronger, and press coverage does sort of eat him up a little bit, which is why I do think he is good for the slot. But I do like him at a Z for a team. Get him off the ball so he can't get jammed. His release packages are smooth. He has nice hips. He has good feet, good footwork. You get him into a Z type of position where he's not necessarily getting jammed, or you can get him in motion and moving. You can put him in the Z or the slot, and he's going to have immediate success in the NFL. Age, he's a little bit older of a prospect. Not too concerned about it, but it is something I figured I'd throw out there. Sort of with my notes, I have a comp very, very similar to what I had with Ladd McConkey. I had another one that just popped in my head, but it popped out. I have him probably around my wide receiver 4 to 5. He's going to battle with Trey Harris for that 4 spot. I actually might put Trey Harris a little higher, but he's not the prospect for right now. I love Xavier Restrepo. I have a comp very, very lofty. Amon-Ra St. Brown. That was the one. Amon-Ra St. Brown was the comp I was thinking of. Dan Campbell type of dude. Hard-nosed.
Yeah.
Blocks. Plays in the slot Z. I know Amon-Ra does play the X a little bit more. Actually, he might play the X full time now, but that's a guy, Amon-Ra to Xavier Restrepo. I could see him going to a team, coming in as a 2 or a 3 or a slot, and making immediate noise, probably like 750 yards, rookie year, multiple touchdowns. So I'm very, very high on him. Going to have him right outside my first round grades.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I have a couple questions just to kind of close out the conversation. But as I was listening to Restrepo from each of you, I was thinking Cole Beasley with how he was used. How close am I?
Cole Beasley was more of the short, twitchy, and I think Xavier Restrepo has more than that to his game. I know Cole Beasley in Dallas was more used a little bit more on the outside and things like that, but I see him as more of just a strictly slot guy, while Xavier can do a little bit more.
Okay. And the way that Beasley was used is he was the guy that always got open on third down against the zones. Right. That's my impression of Cole Beasley. He's your third down, first down guy. He's going to get you a first down on every third down zone defense that you play against. He seemed to be automatic with Josh Allen's. I believe he was there with Josh Allen's either first or second season. And that was who Buffalo always went to on third down. And it was against zone defenses. And that was where Beasley thrived. And then as soon as you jammed Beasley, you took him out of the game. Right, because that's what Kansas City did to Beasley in the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah. I think Randall hit the nail on the head. Cole Beasley from his Dallas days would be a Restrepo good fit. Restrepo is a chain mover. He is that reliable target, but he also has some quick twitch elements to his game. But he's also a guy on 1st and 10 that you can throw a bubble screen to and just watch him take it to the house. Not necessarily in the fast, like Bond worthy way, but just how he's going to, get open. The way I compare it is like when we were all kids and we used to play backyard football and we would draw plays in the sandbox. That's what Xavier Restrepo does at wide receiver. He just scrambles around and somehow finds a way to get open. And then also, once he's got the ball, finds a way to get around defenders into the end zone.
Okay.
I do.
So,
Also, sorry, let me jump. With his route running too, he has a really high IQ, which one of the things I enjoyed was running meshes and picks. He avoids the OPI, and even for the NFL, it wouldn't get called either. He avoids the OPI and he runs good pick routes and make sure he gets in the way, but not in the way a lot. I really watch him doing that as well.
So Cole, next question. Who are your top 7 wide receivers?
Right now, not necessarily completely finalized, as I am working through all of them. If I had to go top 7, I would probably say Tet is 1, relatively and fairly easy. I'd say Hunter is 2, but I'm not quite sure what's going to go on with Travis Hunter and snap usage. If I'm going to go 3, I'm going to say I might actually say Xavier Restrepo. I trust him more than I trust Luther Burden to translate. 4, I'm going to say Burden. 5, I'm going to say Harris. 6, I might say Pat Bryant. 6, I'm going to say Pat Bryant. And then 7, I'm going to go Ty Felton.
Wow. Okay.
All
so,
right.
Randall, who are your top 7?
All right. So this is going to off the top of my head because I haven't completely built my full board, but definitely Tet. I got Tet, Luther. Let's see, Strepo 4. Am I missing a big one right now?
Alik Manor.
No, Emeka Buka was 3.
Oh, got it.
Then,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
I got
yeah.
you and Bill back mixed up.
Then I have 5. Yeah, then I have 5 Alec Manor, and then 6 Xavier Restrepo, 7 Jack Bash.
Okay, and Bill, who are your top 7?
So looking at my board right now, number 1 is Luther Burden. Number 2 is Tet McMillan. Number 3 is Alec Manor. Number 4 is Xavier Restrepo. Number 5, I'm higher on him than most. Jim, you talked about the variants. It's Ty Felton. Number 6 is Isaiah Bond. And number 7, I have a 3-way tie between 3 guys. It's Emeka Egbuka, Jared Brown, who we talked about, and Evan Stewart from Oregon.
Okay. So I am looking forward to a wide receiver big board episode in our near future. Because, I want to be able to document everything that the 3 of you said. And Cole, are you back next Friday?
Yes, I am.
So if we have the opportunity on Friday next week, let's do 2. Let's do the normal one like we just did here. We'll close it out, take a water break, biology break, and we'll come back and we'll do our wide receiver boards through like round 4. Anybody you think is like top 125 or better?
Okay.
Go to the draft professor, make the rankings. We'll share everybody's board on the podcast, and we can just talk about why somebody is higher or lower. Like, why are you for example, I think, and to the point that I made, I think Egbuka is polarizing. I think Ty Felton is polarizing with where somebody puts him. And then Savion Williams and Jack Besh. Those 4 and seeing where people have them can kind of tell you how somebody looks at a wide receiver based upon listening to where everybody has different wide receivers on their board right now. So does that sound like a plan? Like, does everybody kind of have that ability to do that next week?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my big board ready to go. Now, granted, if we go all the way to round 4, I'm 20 plus wide receivers deep because I've talked about it on the very first episode when we did it. This is a deep wide receiver class. This thing goes deep into round 5, round 6.
And it's interesting because I have seen the exact opposite statement that this is a weak wide receiver class. So this is one of the reasons that I want to make sure that we're starting to put our rankings out there. If people are saying it, like there was a very nationally renowned podcast that said that this is a weak wide receiver class.
Personally, I do agree with that. I don't have a single first-round graded wide receiver. I have Tet just outside, followed by the rest, and I still have probably about 25 receivers to grade. So I don't necessarily think that's going to change. I think it's deep in the sense that you're going to find a couple of guys who are going to be able to come in and move the chains and piss you off on third down when you're watching them play your team. But I really just don't think there is that guy that's like a Brian Thomas Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think that's okay when the class is this deep in depth with solid talent, not necessarily top talent.
Yeah. Now, can we take away let's take away 2023 because that was also supposed to be kind of like a historically deep wide receiver class as well. Yeah. So could we context it into let's not think about 2023 and then is it still deep sort of thing?
And I like that, Randall, because if we were to compare this to the year that Jordan Addison, JSN, and there was one other first-round wide receiver that year.
Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston.
Yep.
So if we were to compare it to that year, I think you're onto something, Randall.
I think it's talented. I'm not gonna say deep, but I think it's talented. And it's wild that we got 2023 and with a lot of quick twitch and wide receivers as well, not as many X. This year we have an insane amount of bigger guys and X receivers as well. So it's almost like polarizing difference. Yep.
Fantastic. So we've been at this for 90 minutes. There's a lot of you watching. Thank you. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please and thank you. Please like the podcast on YouTube. Please and thank you. Follow at NFL Draft Fanatic on Twitter. Follow Randall Slifer on Twitter. Follow Bill Sparks at Sparks Scouting on Twitter. Follow Cole on Twitter. And you will be able to find all of us. We have content on Twitter every day. This channel has a daily podcast on the draft. Some way, somehow, we will find a way to talk about it. We've got 21 people lined up. Cole, welcome to the lineup. Great job today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And we're going to see you a couple times next week, Cole. So thank you.
I'm pumped.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mrs. R Relevant, the daily draft podcast brought to you by the Draft Professor Podcast Network. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Please hit the like button on YouTube. Follow the Draft Professor page on Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. There is no I am fanatic. We have content coming to you every day. You can see some of the people delivering that daily content to you on the slide now. Find them on Twitter. Give them a follow. There's always good dialogue on Twitter, and that's how you can find even more draft content than you saw in this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.